You ever get that feeling where the shop just smells, right? It's Wednesday, April 8th, and if I breathe in any deeper, I'm going to have enough sawdust in my lungs to start a medium density fiberboard factory.
Maybe hold off on the industrial scale internal manufacturing for now, Tiger. We've got a lot to get through today. I'm looking at the lineup. We're talking everything from big league Connecticut trophies to people literally sawing the heads off guitars.
It's the TigerDen Daily, folks. We're digging into the guts of the making world. And speaking of the big leagues, I want to tip my hat to Marion Manufacturing out in Cheshire. They just got crowned Connecticut Manufacturer of the Year.
That's a massive title. What are they doing differently? Is it just robots and laser beams, or is there some soul in it?
It's about the philosophy, Alex. They're leaning into what people are calling agile manufacturing. Back when I started, you'd set up a line to do one thing, and you'd do it until the heat death of the universe. But these folks are building modular welding cells. It means if a client calls and says, "Hey, I don't need widgets today. I need sprocket brackets," they can pivot without a 3-week teardown.
So it's basically like a workshop with wheels on everything?
In a way, yeah. It's the industrial version of me finally putting casters on my table saw so I don't have to do a 3-point turn just to rip a sheet of plywood. But on a serious note, keep your eyes on the data center boom. Zeckelman Industries is shifting their whole focus to steel tubing for these massive server farms. If you're a pipe or tube guy, you're about to be the most popular person at the party.
Speaking of being popular, let's talk about the people actually melting that steel. We've got the Global Skills Challenge coming up, and I saw a name that made me do a double take, Brandon, a guy who's been a certified welding inspector since 1998.
1998. I think I was still trying to figure out how to stick two pieces of scrap together without creating a structural hazard back then.
Well, he clearly figured it out. He's a CWI, Certified Welding Inspector. Why is that the golden ticket, as you put it? Is it just about having a fancy stamp?
It's the difference between being a guy who can throw a spark and a guy who understands the molecular dance of the metals. Look, I've spent my fair share of time under a hood, sweating through my shirt, thinking I was a genius because my bead looked like a row of nickels. But then a real inspector walks over, looks at it for 2 seconds, and tells you exactly why that weld is going to fail in 5 years because the metallurgy is off. It's humbling.
So you're saying I shouldn't just wing it with the Harbor Freight welder I bought last week?
Please, for the love of your eyebrows, don't. If you're serious about this as a career, the AWS certifications, the CWI or the CWE for educators, those are the keys to the executive bathroom, so to speak. You stop being the labor and start being the authority. With the Skills USA competitions happening right now, the kids coming up are terrifyingly good. They're studying code books like they're the Sunday comics.
All right, let's shift gears. Not everyone wants to climb the corporate welding ladder. Some people just want to be their own boss. You've been looking into the art of the flip lately. Is this just buying junk at yard sales and hoping for the best?
It's a bit more calculated than that. We're looking at liquidation and government auctions. It's a siren song, Alex. You see a pallet of assorted tools for $200, and your brain starts building a mansion.
I can see the Tiger's tragedy headline now. Man buys 300 broken toothbrushes thinking they were chisels.
It was one time, and they were high-end electric toothbrushes. But no, the lesson I learned the hard way is that mystery boxes are for people who like gambling more than making money. If there isn't a manifest, don't touch it. I look for the hard goods, industrial stuff, anvils, drill presses, heavy-duty shelving. That stuff stays valuable.
But wait, you mentioned something specifically about shipping. That's where the gotcha is, right?
Oh man, I once found a gorgeous vintage anvil at an auction in Ohio for a steal. I won it for $400. I was doing a victory dance in the shop. Then I looked at the freight quote to get that 300-pound hunk of iron to my door.
Let me guess. It costs more than the anvil?
By the time it landed on my driveway, I could have bought a brand new one and had enough left over for a steak dinner. Your profit doesn't exist until the item is in the customer's hands or your shop and the shipping company has taken their bite. Calculate the weight or your deal is just an expensive doorstop.
Let's talk about something a bit more delicate. I saw this in the notes, and honestly, it sounds like surgery. Renecking an Epiphone Les Paul?
It is surgery. It's episode 6 of this series over on YouTube, and I've been watching it with my jaw on the floor. Most people, if they snap the neck of a guitar, they cry, they might try some wood glue and a prayer, or they turn it into wall art.
But these guys are actually replacing the whole structural spine of the instrument.
Precisely. You're talking about steam cleaning old hide glue out of a mortise and tenon joint that was never meant to come apart. You've got to be so precise that the geometry of the string stays perfect over 20 some frets. If you're off by a hair, the whole thing sounds like a dying cat.
You usually don't have that kind of patience, Tiger. I've seen you use a sledgehammer on a dovetail joint that wouldn't seat.
My percussive maintenance phase is behind me, mostly. But watching that luthier work, it reminds you that sometimes the best tool in the shop is just taking a breath and looking at the problem for 10 minutes before you touch the wood.
Speaking of making things look easy, what's the deal with this Carlos guy and the drywall? I didn't think anyone could make drywall sound exciting.
Carlos from Elemento Drywall is a wizard. Most of us hate drywall. It's dusty, it's heavy, and getting those joints seamless is a nightmare. You sand until your arms fall off, and the moment you prime it, you see a hump. Carlos has this technique. It's all in the wrist and the feathering. He uses a ton less mud, which means a ton less sanding.
So he's basically the Bob Ross of gypsum board?
Let's put a happy little corner bead right here. Honestly, if you're doing a home reno, watch him. It'll save you from that layer of white powder that somehow finds its way into your closed kitchen cabinets 3 rooms away.
We've covered a lot today. Big factories, professional certifications, the auction hustle, and high-stakes luthiery. What's the thread here? What are we taking away from this Wednesday?
I was looking at a scrap of mahogany today. It was left over from a project I botched last month. I was going to throw it in the wood stove, but I realized the only reason it's scrap is because I stopped thinking about what else it could be.
That's surprisingly deep for a guy who just talked about heavy-duty steel tubing.
Well, don't get used to it. But really, whether you're pivoting a multi-million-dollar factory like Marion or you're just trying to figure out how to fix a snapped guitar neck, the excellence isn't in the machine. It's in the willingness to change your mind when the material tells you you're wrong.
So, the takeaway is, don't be as stubborn as the materials you're working with.
Exactly. Be like the weld, strong enough to hold it all together, but flexible enough not to crack under the pressure. Now get out of here. I've got a mystery box arriving from an auction any minute, and I need to clear space for my 300 high-end toothbrushes.
I knew it. See ya, Tigers.